The Fed has been concerned about inflation from tariffs, but that's not been the case. But we may very well see a tick up in inflation in this next report because of this rise in oil prices. So here's what you need to know before the bell this morning. Oil prices on the rise here lately because of what's happening right now between Iran and Israel. And again, kind of rhetoric starting to kick up a bit. The U.S., so Israel is trying to knock out Iran's nuclear capability. However, the one nuclear facility they need to get to is buried deep within a mountain. And the only way to get to that mountain is with a bunker buster bomb. The only country that has bunker buster bombs that can reach that depth to destroy that nuclear facility is the United States. So the big threat right now is between Iran and the United States is that if we get involved, in other words, if we supply the bunker buster bomb to Israel, or if we drop the bomb ourselves to destroy that nuclear facility, which there's been some overtones from the Trump administration saying, hey, I tried to negotiate with you. We gave you a good deal to stop this, but you didn't take that deal, so consequences are coming. There is some rhetoric that is reaching up into that. Now, markets have not been paying a whole lot of attention to this lately, but oil prices, have been creeping up here. We've seen this over the last few days, in particular, as concerns over this conflict, kind of ratchet up here a bit. The Strait of Hormuz is a very big transit for oil. So if the Strait of Hormuz gets cut off, that's going to potentially cause a crimp in oil deliveries, driving the price of oil higher. And that's been one of the concerns here and why oil prices have been rising. Now, importantly, oil's at $75 a barrel. Economically, that's okay. Actually, between $70 and $80 a barrel, where we are right now, that's actually good for oil companies. It's profitable enough for them to go out and drill wells, make some money at it. But there is concern that if something happens, that we could see oil prices jump to $80, $90, $100 a barrel. At that level, everything rises in price, not just in terms of the cost of production. Yeah, I'm making more money on every dollar I produce, or every barrel I produce, but all the input costs to drilling go dramatically higher. The cost of employment and drilling rigs and all that ratchet up radically, which becomes almost non-profitable to drill even at higher prices. That's also feeding through into the economy in terms of higher oil prices, higher food prices, etc. That's where inflation can come from in terms of this issue. Now, the interesting thing about high oil prices is that it does feed through into inflation temporarily, but the cure for high oil prices is high oil prices because it crimps off demand, and then oil prices historically fall very shortly after that. So the point here is that the Fed has been concerned about inflation, from tariffs, but that's not been the case. But we may very well see a tick up in inflation in this next report because of this rise in oil prices. However, we have to keep this all into context. If you take a longer term view of oil prices, they have really not spiked that much. So we may see a small uptick in inflation because of this rise in oil prices, but this is not nearly to the degree that a lot of the media is talking about. I mean, we had oil prices near $120 a barrel back in 2022 when Russia invaded Ukraine. That was an oil price spike that could have really created a big surge in inflation at that point. But as you'll notice, that did not last long. As soon as oil prices got to that level, we had concerns about recession in the U.S. economy, and oil supply demand dropped, and that brought down prices. So again, yes, small uptick in oil prices here. That's certainly going to feed into inflation. Expect a hotter inflation print next report. That's going to potentially keep the Fed on hold here temporarily, but that is going to be a temporary spike depending on what happens. If Israel and Iran settle issues pretty quickly, oil prices will start to fall again. All right, that's what you need to know before the bell this morning.